Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rough and Tough, where we talk about all things rough and all things tough. I currently have my buddy Graham on the other line. You guys remember Graham? Say hi, Graham.
Hi, Graham.
There he is.
Man, that's bad. When your daughter starts teaching you stuff that you don't know, man, that's rough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I had a
that's
friend of
rough
mine.
and
He
tough.
joked around with me. I worked with him. He comes up to me. He's like, "Dude, the math these kids are learning nowadays, it's like, dude, it's all kinds of fucked up." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "It's like, yeah." But I walked up to my daughter and was like, "Oh, hey, math. Oh, yeah, I can help you out with that." And all of a sudden, he takes it, he looks at it, then looks back up at her and goes, "When they start putting letters in it."
Yeah, I know that's fucked up. It's like, oh, they ran out of numbers. But wait, numbers are endless, no? Oh, no, there's only nine of them, but they tell you they're endless. Okay, the Romans didn't have a zero. That's screwed up shit, man. Like, how the fuck did they manage to do anything without a zero? So,
I don't know.
I mean, it's just like
They say that, and did you hear how they worked out all their plumbing and all that shit?
I don't know. They
Like how
probably
they were able to get to bring water and stuff to their cities. Did you never heard about this?
Well, apart from paying slaves to carry it around, I don't know. Well, they had all that underfloor heating and stuff. They were able to organize that. I remember reading about that in Britain, and then rather obviously learning that the English town of Bath was named Bath because it was full of Roman baths at one point in time. And then me thinking, why did they fuck it up? Why did they just turn it into a shithole? Oh, anyway, never mind.
Right.
So,
Well, let me tell you something that's crazy about it. They built these super long like water bridges. Okay.
aqueducts. There's a
Yes.
name for them. Aqueducts.
And what they did was the next brick
Not
that they would
ducks,
lay would be
ducts.
like exactly 0.01 centimeters lower than the next one,
Okay.
so that the water would flow from lakes onto these bridges, and
Mhm.
they would build these for miles, like for miles upon miles,
You know,
and it would bring water.
human engineering is in history is kind of underrated. Do you know that most of the south, what is it, the southwest of England was water at one point in time, right? Most of it was water, and the king decided that he would drain the land in order to claim more land for himself because, territory is power, right? And that's what they did. They drained England, basically. And that's where all the
How the fuck did they do that?
and that's like 250, 300 years ago, right? And I only discovered this like I was reading some obscure website and they had maps of England and they had these maps and it was like water and I was like, there's no water there. And then they had the maps before and then the maps after. These areas, like, you know where Stonehenge is, Salisbury Plain. It's called the
Oh yeah,
Salisbury
yeah, I've
Stonehenge.
been there.
Okay, well, that was, you get all these old mystical films with like Arthur and Merlin and mist and lakes and stuff and everything, right? And
Right.
well, you imagine that that was England, right? Because Stonehenge was was in an area that you can only get to by boat. Right now it's in the middle of the land, right? But at one point in
Right.
time, you could only get to it by boat, and all there were little islands in that area, and everything else was wet land. You still have this in London, actually. There's a place in northeast London called Hackney Marsh, and the land is wet, and they can't build anything on it because it's all wet. Um, anyway, so most of England was this marshy land, and they drained the land. They drained all the water off the land so that they could populate it there. And so people used to travel around by boats originally because there was so much water there. But
How the hell did they drain it all?
um, they created channels and pumps, and they just bit by bit. And if you look at like you know you've got those areas of like Holland that are lower than sea level, right? And if you
Right.
look at that, if you look at that area of England, it's lower than sea level, right?
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so they pumped all the water out and put it into special channels, and it's one of the many, and that started kind of British engineering, right? And doing things like that. If you think about the bridges, most of the modern bridge designs originally like came from Scottish engineers and designers, because everything started in Scotland, right? You know that. So and then they had the locks, boats traveling up levels. Those were first. The first modern locks were designed in Scotland, and you look at the channel from the North Sea to the Atlantic, and I used to fucking live near there, and I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, never mind. Yeah, the history is mental with its engineering. Roads. There were roads all the way across Europe that people are only rediscovering now because they go to like build a house somewhere and they're like, oh, there's a fucking road under here. Um, Last week, a version of Stonehenge was discovered in Ireland, which is bigger than Stonehenge, and they only discovered it because there was a massive drought and everything dried up, and somebody took an aerial picture, and they're like, "Oh my God, look, it's a Stonehenge." Oh, and by the way, did you know that Stonehenge was built in 1900?
No, I did not.
It was. I've seen the photographs, mate.
How'd they do it?
How did they do it? All the stones that you see at Stonehenge today were either underground or lying on the ground. They were dug up and repositioned in
Hmm.
1900. It was an engineering project. So that place called Stonehenge that people visit today, that didn't exist before between 1900 and 1910. And if you Google photographs of the building of Stonehenge, you've got original black and white pictures, obviously black and white, of them reconstructing the I don't know the henge, I don't know what to call it, right? There, or the gate,
Hmm.
or whatever. But if you, in fact, if you here's one of those classic faux pas of history is that one of the most famous English landscape paintings is a painting of Stonehenge, and I'm not sure if it's by Constable or another artist, and I should check it on Google, but I'm too fucking lazy. Um, and um, and in his painting, like there's three stones are standing up, and like all the other stones are on the ground, right? And that's originally how Stonehenge used to look, yeah, until 1900, and then for some reason, somebody somewhere, probably in the government, decided to rebuild it, and they dug up all the stones, and they got some people who thought they knew how it would all fit together, and they just put the stones back together. And it was 1900, so they probably fucked it up completely.
Probably. It was probably like, like stones to like shape out like the devil's face or some shit, and they're like, oh well, let's reposition them to look like this. Yeah.
Well, no one had any idea what they were doing. I mean, the only way to get into the pyramids was to fucking throw sticks of dynamite at it, wasn't it? I mean, they couldn't even find the fucking door. So, I mean, the people uh, were still as primitive as primitive can be. So,
Right, but I was gonna say, if you notice the stones they used to build the pyramids, for example, I mean, were located over 350 miles away.
oh yeah, yeah. It's like, what? How do you move them, and what is the point, right? Why not build the place?
Which is why there's the theory that maybe man wasn't the only one involved.
Are you saying women built the henge?
Not saying I'm not talking about the henge, I'm talking about the pyramids.
Oh,
And no, I'm not saying women did either. I'm saying that there was some unknown species that might have had some super, super advanced technology that might have helped us out a little bit.
yeah. It could be in your DNA, man. You know.
Well, yeah, they something too, since we're on that subject.
Mm.
Something too that's also been discovered is that green for our eyes is not something that is native to our human DNA. It
Green.
was put there.
Man, there's so much shit. There's so much. Uh,
Something else too that's going to cause you to think a little bit.
mhm,
Of every single animal on the planet, there are two
mhm,
where their DNA structures don't match anything else. One,
mhm.
cows.
Okay.
Science has determined based on their DNA structures that cows are not native to this planet.
All right. All right. Right.
The second one,
Okay.
something that's similar.
Okay.
Goats.
Goats.
Mm-hmm.
Goats. Goats are not native to
Goat.
this planet either.
Right.
Although they look
However,
fucking weird
they have
anyway.
similar DNA structures as cows. However, cows, it's been determined, are not from this planet.
You know, there's a couple of people that I've met in the last week. I'm pretty sure not from this planet either. I'm not sure they even know which
Okay,
planet they're
don't
on.
mock me.
Okay,
Don't mock me.
I'm, I'm not mocking you. I'm just telling you a fact. I'm just,
Don't mock me.
I'm just feeding in a fact, man. I'm just feeding in a fact. There's a lot of weird shit. Look at the fucking Bosnian pyramids. That's fucking weird. Um,
Right.
look at the
I would
fact that
agree.
there's 6 million skulls buried under Paris. Okay.
Yeah, the catacombs.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
been.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's pretty screwed up, right? Um, um, look at the
And
fact
it's not
that
just skulls.
look at the
It's
fact
not
that
just skulls.
look at the fact that nobody except me knows how Scotland got its name. That's fucking weird. Um, look at just we don't know shit. There's a great Forbidden Worlds by Max Egan has the alternative, not alternative view of history, has the odd facts of history collected is incredible, where um, he goes into the evidence of dragons existing 150 years ago, um, and until all traces of
Okay,
them were
that
wiped
that
out.
that seems a little far
I
fetched
know,
for me.
but watch. But okay, I was in a museum in Slovakia, right? And it was like a tiny little nature museum in the town that I lived in. And I was there with my kids, and we were looking at stuff, and it was like, oh, the history of the region, and they had all these books and stuff. And I opened up one of those books, and there was a picture of a mammoth. And I was like, what the fuck? And I was reading part of it in English, and I got someone to translate what was there. And what they were saying was that the last mammoth in Europe was killed only 400 years ago. 400 to 450 years ago, the last mammoth in Europe was killed by whoever was king of that region. It's in the fucking book with a picture of the king and the story of him killing the last mammoth.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's in like that's in recorded history for that region. So um, that's pretty mental. So the idea that these,
Oh, whoa. You mean to tell me that mammoths were still roaming the earth 400 years ago?
according to this book, yes, according to this history of the region of Slovakia, yes.
You've got to be shitting me.
I know, it's completely insane. I know it's completely insane, but if you consider the fact that the ability to make records and record information only came into existence really very recently, you've got 200 years of lost time there, right? Where you've got pre-enlightenment, you've got people didn't know what was the largest. Okay, I was living in the area in the same place as this museum. I was living in the area of the largest fortress in Europe. Okay, no,
The
you go and ask
largest.
anybody where the largest fortress in Europe is, they haven't got a fucking clue. It was right where I was living in central Slovakia, the largest fortress in Europe, yeah, was there. And nobody knows the history of it. All they've got is this outline of a couple of walls. And it was only, they only started to re-dig it up about 10 years ago. They only started to research it 10 years ago. Right, and they found some like little bit of wall on top of a hill, and they cleared the trees from around it, and they followed. Okay, where does this wall go? And they followed it and followed it and followed it and followed it and followed it, and it took years and years and years and years, and eventually they came out with this is the largest fortress in Europe, and we don't know anything about it.
Wow.
So we the history is is insane with information that we don't have, and all we've got right now are warplanes and warships that are seem just to blow up and destroy anything which is old, so that we don't have any history at all, right? We've got very little information about who we are and where we came from and what cultures and civilizations did in periods of the past. And we're told it was all war, and that's kind of bullshit because I think it was mostly peace if you look at it, and the wars were relatively few and far between, but people focused on that because it was more interesting. So there was a hell of a lot more going on, and I'm not saying it was good in the past. People lived through hell for sure, but did every week? Did you know that every week there are at least 5 to 10 major scientific and archaeological discoveries that change history every week? So you put that into a year. That's 52 weeks in a year, right? That's like 500 major changes to human history that happen every single year. How many are people aware of? How many are people aware of? Like zero, right? Zero. People
I
are
don't
aware
know.
of
I've,
zero.
I've I've heard a couple, but it's like a quick little fleeting glimpse and then suddenly gone.
Yeah, well, look, every.
And and as you know, like on Sundays, I mean, and I'm gonna bring you on for one of these. I mean, this seems more of like a supernatural Sunday episode than anything. But I've got a really interesting story that had just come my way that I'm posting next week.
Man, I'm telling you about the mammoth story is true as far as I can determine, man. It's true. Anything. Look,
Right.
our history doesn't go, our everything that we've been taught doesn't really go back more than okay, here's another one that'll blow your mind. Okay, the Wright brothers first flight 1903. Bullshit. There are American newspapers.
Leonardo da Vinci did it first.
He designed it first. I don't know if he flew, but we're talking about with the
He
modern.
flew it. No, no. I was there. I went to the museum there in
Yeah.
France.
Hmm.
I read there. He actually flew what is the first design that helped us build the American or the helicopter. He actually came off the ground 6 feet.
Yeah, well, there's
So
all
for
this.
you would know that as 2 meters.
Yeah, so I mean, there are stories of before the Wright brothers' flight. There are stories of deliveries by planes in other parts of the USA. Okay, so I
Before
mean,
the Wright brothers even did that.
yeah. So I mean that's and those are from newspapers that pre 1900 newspapers. Yeah. Now there's all of the anomalies were collected. It's referenced by Jordan Maxwell in one of his books. Jordan Maxwell's books are just epic on alternative histories and timelines. Not saying it's all true, but he has the guts to ask the questions, which is what people need to do. And if anyone's interested in language like me in history, you got to get a book, The Cult of Illies. The Cult of Illies, which describes a religious group living around the time of 2,000 years ago in Italy and how they took control of systems in that part of the world. And it's an epic book because um, a lot of our modern language and words comes from this tribal group of people who then took over everything. And it gets even more mental than that. I mean, look, I lived in that small town in the middle of Slovakia. Now, the small town in the middle of Slovakia was famous for mining. That's why it was called Banska. Banska is Slovak for mine, right? And The first mining university in Europe was there. Okay, the first mining
Hmm.
university, and people traveled from all over Europe to try to control the land because the mines were so profitable, right? And there were wars over it, and they were fighting over it, and the first battle at the beginning of the Gladiator film was actually is actually set in that area, right? Uh, anyway, the point was that the local mines were set up by a family called the Fuggers, and that doesn't mean anything to anybody, but they married into the Medici family of Italy.
Ah.
Right. And that means something to people. And then you get to learn about how the mines were controlled and what they did with the products of the mines and how they transformed them and how they talking about the engineering, they re-engineered Slovakia like 200 years ago. They re-engineered it, the whole country. They reconstructed it. Because to build the mines, they had to get the water out of the underground areas. Yeah. And so they,
Mm-hmm.
they built these special lakes to pump water up and down. And so if you look at Slovakia, Slovakia has more man-made lakes than any other place in Europe. Like each town has got like 20 or 30 in the central region round about it. Yeah, because these were places that were used for water transportation through the building and construction of the mines, and now it's where people go for their holidays, and they don't realize that there's thousands of I don't know, at least hundreds of miles of underground tunnels all under that region and that people don't even know about. So it's insane. And then you've got the underground cities in the Turkish desert, and yeah, man, history's wild, man. History is so
Well,
fucking wild.
I got a story for you that apparently a bunch of my listeners, okay, and they sent this to me.
Okay.
I mean, if there's anything that's weird or unexplained or paranormal or just something that kind of makes that kind of huh. I call that the huh factor.
Mm.
It's like, are you serious? It's like,
Uh,
that's fucking interesting.
mm.
Well, Sunday I brought an American soldier who was an ex-United States Marine who was or Marine Special Forces. He was reconnaissance. He was part of a reconnaissance team who was stationed in Afghanistan.
Mm.
Well, when 9/11 happened, he was part of a special team that ended up going to Afghanistan, going to search for Osama bin Laden. Well, him and his team, he said that there were, I think he said there were like 15 guys altogether that were
Mm.
stationed, or were dispatched out to go handle a unknown threat, and that it was super super top secret. Now, the dude didn't give out his name. We called him John, and this was the first interview that I did where I was able to test my voice disguiser program,
Okay.
and it works. I
Okay.
mean,
That's
dude
cool.
didn't even want his voice
Mm.
to be be heard.
Mm. Wow.
He said, and I quote, he said, "We got a green zone and we got a red zone." It's like we were literally flown out. It's like in the middle of the woods, or they're going in the middle of the desert, on the edge of the green zone. He's like, and we had to walk 13 miles to get to the location of where we were supposed to do the job we were asked to do. The job that we were told was to exterminate the target.
Mm.
It's like, and as soon as we do, we're to call it in. That's like, or call in, say that the target's been exterminated. So we're thinking, okay, well, we're the team that's going to be called out. We found out the location of Bin Laden, and we're gonna go get him, or at least that's what they thought. They said it's a high value target, which means that Obviously, this is some serious shit that they're going into. 15 guys. Well, they're walking. It's like the location that they went to. It's a tall kind of mountaintop. That's what he said. It's like it's like a mountaintop. It was all flat near the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
They climb up the top of it, and when they get there, they find that there's a cave.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, not a big deal. Well, when they get to where the cave is, they're noticing there's a bunch of bones of what looks like camels, horses, some human remains. It's like, and then when they kind of dug through them a little bit, they were finding weapons and grenades and all kinds of stuff just completely buried in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, okay, well, we don't know what we're here for. We just know it's a high-value target. It's like, whoever this dude is, it's like, he's eating fucking camels and shit. Well, they post up. They're getting ready to go into the cave when he said, it's like protocol states that they launch a flare into the front of the cave so that they're able to see where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
They launched their flare in, cave, and everything looked completely empty. They heard a very, very deep scream,
mm-hmm.
and suddenly a huge spear. He said, like the actual, the actual spear handle and the top.
Mm-hmm.
Said the handle itself was about 13 feet long. It's about 8 inches around. It's like, and the spear tip was 3 feet long by 2 feet wide.
Uh-huh.
Said this thing had to have weighed 300 or 400 pounds, easy, and it just come hurling out of that hole.
Wow.
They're like, what the hell? So they start dumping their rounds into this cave. Said what came out of this cave was a man in a fucking loincloth, big red beard, 13 feet tall, 2 jaws. It's like, had 6 fingers on each hand. He's like, and this dude was strong. Came over, started, grabbed one dude by his leg and started going around hitting everybody else using one guy that was there. They went in with a team of 15, left with a team of 5. He said they dumped everything they had into this dude's face. Finally killed him. After 20 minutes, it just 3 rounds straight to the face. Well, they called in their groups or whatever. They called in the troops. Mm-hmm. Said a helicopter showed up with a big-ass net. It took them 35 to 40 minutes to finally lift this heavy-ass dude up. He said, dude was at least 300 pounds. Easy. He's like, and he wasn't fat. Load him up onto this net. They carried him off, and they waited 3.5 hours for their medevac to come back to pick up their dead and to come pick up what was left of their team. How fucking crazy is that shit?
Well, that's crazy, and I'll tell you why it's crazy.
Right. Hold on.
Yeah, okay.
Right when I'm thinking, okay, yeah, this dude's lying through his teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I got pictures.
Pictures. Oh, I don't believe that.
I have them, dude.
Pictures of this giant.
Of the giant, the spear, and the location he was talking about. I didn't believe the guy. I'm like, dude, words are words. Mm-hmm. He's like, check your phone. I look at my phone and I see what looks like almost like an email or whatever that was on there,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't an email. There was a document on my fucking home screen I never put there.
So how do I get to
Fucking
see
crazy, right?
how do I get to see the pictures?
Well, everybody's gonna see the pictures Sunday when I post the episode.
I want to see the picture now.
Can't do that, bro. I'm gonna reveal it to everybody at the same time. But I can tell you, there's a few of them that are pretty fucking graphic.
Well, I'm a believer that when you have information, you should get it out as quickly as possible because it protects you.
No. Let me
No?
tell you why I'm waiting until Sunday.
Okay, tell me why.
Because that's when dude will be out of the country.
Uh-huh.
And the
Okay.
last thing I want to do is have that dude get caught and fucking killed for talking to me.
Yeah, okay, look, okay, let me play skeptic for a second. Can I do that?
Okay, go ahead, dude. You're playing devil's advocate. I get it.
Okay. I have never in my life seen anything that I couldn't explain.
I have.
I have. I've never seen anything I couldn't explain, man. Everything has made perfect sense to me. The only things that I convey to other people about things that I don't understand or things that I've read about that other people have evidence. Personally, myself, in my experience of life, I have never seen anything that was unnatural, supernatural, beyond the natural. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, right? Because obviously,
No. You're a skeptic. I get it. Because after this story, I'll tell you one of mine.
listen, I've met people who are like, yeah, he died and then all of his stuff started to do weird things happened to all of his stuff and everybody saw it and blah blah blah, and I've met people who
Oh
are
yeah,
like, yeah, I've seen this shit move across the room all by itself
I
and
have.
and
I
look,
had shit thrown at me before.
look, I would love to have an experience like that, man.
Come to the
Yeah.
United States. I know a few locations.
Cause I I know that we don't know stuff, right? And it's
You
falling
ever
into
captured a voice on like on one of your podcasts that wasn't there before?
nope. I've never had anything
I
happen
have.
that I couldn't explain. Okay, I mean I've had like serendipity and weird coincidence and stuff, but not anything that within you know tangible logic isn't actually a possibility, right? Somebody has to win the lottery, right? So,
Okay, let me tell you a weird thing that happened to me here in North Dakota. And for years, for for 2 to 3 years, I thought I was crazy until one of my ex-coworkers came back and told me something and this was like a week ago. He called. We'll get into that in just a minute. Let me tell you my experience first.
okay.
I was on a saltwater disposal location. Now, bear in mind, I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere. There's myself. There are 3 other guys that work there. However, everybody was like, in the process of like their shift change and everything. And the
Mhm.
way that it worked was everybody worked, 12-hour shifts. However, we'd have one guy that would come on at noon, one guy that would come on at 3 p.m.,
Mhm.
another guy that would come on at 6 p.m., and then have another guy that would come on at 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And we would all work 12s,
Mm-hmm.
doing exactly that. So basically, it was like every 6 hours we were trading somebody out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
Keeping everybody working because the site was constantly moving. However, there would be times where there would be absolutely no trucks around because there's no flowbacks, there's no water to be moved, and
Mm-hmm.
we would maybe see 4 or 5 trucks a day.
Mm-hmm.
And during the night, there wouldn't be anybody in there because 90% of those people that came in during the day were sleeping. So we would go through, shut everything down, pull up our water levels down, get everything all cleaned up, set up for the next, 3 to 4 week rush that would just be constantly blowing through there. Well, this is one of them slow weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Our wellhead was a quarter mile away. However, I was somebody that I didn't really get much exercise doing that job. So what I'd do is I'd grab my sidearm. At the time, it was a Desert Eagle. It was basically it's a hand cannon. It's fucking huge.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case, there happens to be like a bunch of coyotes or something while I'm out there and I'm a quarter mile away from the facility and can't get help. But we got to go out there at least once a night to check on the wellhead, make sure nothing's leaking, nothing's broken, and everything's working right. Well, I go out there. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, dark as hell. Got my flashlight, got my clipboard, got my gun. Well, I go up there, I'm checking the wellhead, looking everything down, and I hear something move in the grass just off the edge of the site, of like where the wellhead was.
Mm-hmm.
I turn around, I'm thinking, okay, it's probably a coyote or whatever, but, just in case, I draw my pistol.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I go to look down because, it's on the side of a hill. I go to look down, into this grass, and what it is that I see a dead coyote, one that got shot by one of the guys last week or something, I don't know. The dead coyote right there. And something is fucking eating this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It looked a lot like a human. Okay, it was like bald, skin was kind of gray, had webbing for its fingers, or between its fingers, between its knuckles all the way down to where the top of its palm was.
Mm-hmm.
Had, kind of longer fingernails. Had a web from its elbow to like halfway down its rib cage. Completely fucking naked.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm shining it, and I'm thinking it's a dude wearing fucking makeup, trying to freak me out.
Spider-Man in gray.
No. Spider-Man can't swim.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Whatever this thing was, okay, and I literally looked at it and was like, dude, that's fucking gross, right? Thinking it was a somebody that was there. And it looked up at me, and the eyes of this thing were reflecting the light back from my flashlight,
Mm-hmm.
like an animal at nighttime. Like, you know how like when you're driving along the road, how the light will like reflect like the deer's like an animal's eyes and shit back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Looked just like that, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I took a step back, and it was a male, had a dick and balls,
Migta.
stood up, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you?
Oh
And now bear in mind, I'm drawn down on this thing. And I said to him, don't fucking move, dude. And I'm getting ready to reach into my pocket, and that's when I realize that I'm holding the flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
And the gun's in my other hand, so it's not like I can just put the flashlight down, reach into my pocket, and take a picture of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I'm like, don't fucking move. And I'm trying to think of a way to get my phone out. Well, it like flinched a little bit,
Mhm.
scared me, and I shot this thing in the fucking chest.
Mhm.
I won't lie, boom! Blood and everything off, flew from the back of this thing. It's like, skin chunks and shit, went all over into the grass. And I'm thinking, oh fuck, I just killed something. I just killed this thing.
Mhm.
I start freaking out a little bit, like, oh shit, I clear or I pull the magazine out, kick the round that's out in the chamber, right? And I start running down into this hill thinking, like, I just fucking murdered somebody, and I'm freaking out a little bit. And I'm looking around, and I can't find it. About 20 feet away to my left, I'm hearing something run away.
Mhm.
So I'm running after it. I searched for 20 fucking minutes.
Mhm.
Could not find this thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I hit it in the chest. There's gotta be a fucking blood trail. Like, so my hunter instincts are kicking in. I'm looking for blood. I'm looking for whatever. I saw it fucking happen.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I'm looking around, looking around, looking around. 20 minutes, I finally give up, and I'm thinking, okay, well, somebody's gonna be in the fucking hospital or something, because that's a 50 fucking cal Magnum round. Whatever it is, probably gonna die soon.
Mhm.
Okay. I go back up to where the coyote's corpse was,
Mhm.
and I'm looking around. There's no fucking blood. There's no skin chunks. No, none of that. Like, nothing fucking happened. Nothing at all. However, the coyote corpse,
Mhm.
there were scratch marks and tear marks that were on that thing that were fresh. I waited. I waited till the morning, and I went to search for everything again.
Mhm.
There was a footprint that was shaped a lot like a human's. However, it had like almost like claws for its toes,
Mhm.
which was a little fucking weird to me.
Okay.
Snap pictures of that, and anytime I tried to tell anybody that story at all, they were like, "Oh no, there's no fucking way. There's no way." I'm like, "You're right. There's no
Mhm.
fucking way." But here's the picture of the fucking footprints.
Yeah.
When I told the police, what it was that I saw, I showed them pictures of the footprints. I showed them pictures of the coyote.
Mhm.
They told me that they'd heard of something like that had happened up there that was similar to it, or at least in that area, something
Mhm.
similar that was spotted 10 fucking years ago,
Mhm.
and nobody did anything about it. Well, my buddy called me last week,
Mhm.
and he's like, dude, what I'm about to tell you, it's going to sound fucking crazy. I'm like, okay, what's up? And he tells me, it's like midnight. I'm going to check the wellhead. It's like, I'm hearing fucking movement and shit. It's like, so once again, I got my gun, went up there with a skid steer just in case. It's like, and I swear to God, I saw a gray person completely fucking naked,
Mhm.
eyes reflecting the sun back, or the light back to me, not the sun, reflecting the light back to me,
Mhm.
and it was eating a fucking bird I shot.
Whoa.
I'm like, are you
Whoa.
shitting me? He's like, no. And that was when I told him my story. He's like, no fucking way. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that thing is. But he was talking about the webbing and everything too. I didn't tell him any of it. Didn't tell anybody what happened there for fear that they would look at me and say, get him drug tested now and lose my fucking job. It's not that I would have, not passed a drug test or whatever by any means, but I was thinking to myself, well, I couldn't find whatever the fuck it was I shot. I couldn't see, there wasn't blood, there wasn't any evidence at all that anything else was there, short of a fucking footprint and a dead animal.
Wow. Wow.
I told the cops, but I never told the guys.
Mhm.
When he called me up and told me that told me, okay, I wasn't fucking hallucinating.
Yeah, it doesn't.
According to a Native American chief that I talked to on the res
Mhm.
3 months ago, he said to me that it's possible. It's what of the Native American stories that they're told. It's possible that it could be what they call a Wendigo.
Mhm.
I'm like, what the fuck's a Wendigo? He's like, apparently it's like a bad spirit that likes to feed on the flesh of the dead.
Wow.
So
That's kind of that's kind of
brings
freaky.
fucking goosebumps, right?
Well, it does. It's still everything that everyone's brought to me that's unexplained has been brought to me by other people. I mean, that's a kind of tautological statement, I know, but um, it's I've never like I've never maybe my brain just doesn't comprehend things beyond a certain principle or beyond a certain way of thinking, right? And I know that there are psychological, you know, traps that we all fall into, certain ways that we do things, our ridiculous daily habits and rituals and so on. But I, look, I trust you. I've never had anything weird happen to me though. I mean, like, where's all the weird? How come it's happened to everybody else but not me, right? You know, what's all that about, right?
Well, if you want weird, come to North Dakota. I'll show you some weird shit. I'll show you a place where cars coast uphill.
Oh, there's lots of like those kind of geographical things where it looks like something is down, but it's up, right?
Uh-huh.
There's there's
Or it
lots.
looks like it's up, but it's actually down.
Oh, something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's all of those things. It's like there's rocks that appear to roll across the desert and stuff, but it's just wind and
Oh
sand and
no, no,
earth.
I've seen those. I've seen those too. Like where you have like rocks that'll move on their own, and you'll see like the whole skid trail
Yeah, well, once.
because they have a determination on that actually. Want to know why that works?
Yeah, sure. Tell me why.
The rocks that they found out say that are made of a certain material,
Hmm.
magnesium. Magnesium tends to react to moon's gravity, while much like waves and the tides do.
Okay.
And when the moon reaches a certain point, in the sky, it
Hmm.
tends to gravitate and pull in the direction of the moon.
Okay.
So,
Well, there's a scientific explanation.
uh
There's a
but it's still
scientific.
kind of cool. It's like you look and you'll see a fucking rock move on its own. I mean, that's pretty fucking neat.
Yeah, but yeah, it is neat, but it's just like okay, well that's science. We understand that, right? So I mean, there's science which is able to give some level of explanation, maybe not a complete explanation, because I've heard a lot of stuff like The water, for example, is a very odd sort of substance and doesn't conform to most scientific laws. You know, combining the the two molecules of hydrogen and one of oxygen in order to create a liquid um, with a certain level of density is actually unscientific within itself, including the the properties.
Well, that's because it's not only hydrogen and oxygen, it's also a bunch of minerals as well.
Well, you know, there's as I said, there's more, right? You know, the simple explanations that we're given are are far too simple. So there's there's so much that we don't know. I mean, there's a lost history and a found history. You know, the there's you look at what happened to to the Templars in Europe, right? And the conflicts related to that, and the Templars ended up in Malta, Switzerland, and Scotland as a result. And there is one page of one book which describes the Scottish King Robert the Bruce's victory over the English as only being achievable when the Templars' armies arrived to support the king. Right? No other book mentions it, and I had the book until a few weeks ago actually. I
Well, I was going to say, I was actually related to the man who created the Knights Templar.
Okay, and so there's there's a whole history of interesting elements and things there of control and power and um, the idea that Columbus discovered America. I mean, that's obviously bullshit for anyone who's got a brain and looks at history, right? Um, the first early photographs in North America from North America clearly show that the American Indian tribes were an integration of different tribal groups from around the world, right?
Oh, yeah.
They were integrated with Vikings. They were integrated with the Scots clans. I only know that because that's from like my side of research. I mean, but I'm pretty sure there were lots of other integrations there as
Yeah,
well.
so the Norse were here,
Mhm.
the Scottish were here way before Christopher Columbus showed up.
Yeah, yeah, and there's the odd the odd parchments and maps that exist that clearly show things like the land under Antarctica, which we couldn't map until we had ground penetrating radar and satellite technology, and that those maps turn out to be accurate. So that's all sort of weird kind of shit. I mean, there's stories that the Industrial Revolution was a cover for a lot of other stuff that was going on. Here's, if you're interested in picking up new information about history and how mental it is, there's a weekly newsletter I get. It's called the Weekly Science Report. Don't be fooled by the title. Okay, Weekly Science Report. It's by a man called Stephen Detweiler. Steve Detwiler. Yeah. And what he does is he collates the discoveries of the alternative researchers and puts it into an email each week and sends it out. And each week he's got 50 stories that will blow your mind. Every single story will blow your mind. Yeah. There's not even enough time to to look at the new research every week that's released, which is mind blowing. Like one of these stories will blow your mind. I'm looking at it right now on my screen, right? It's divided into paleontology, evolution, prehistoric studies. There are 5 stories that change history this week completely. Then there's history. There's 7 stories that change history completely. Then there's archaeology. There's what are we 15 to 20 stories that change history this week. This week, right? Egyptology, there are 3 stories that change history this week. general science to physics, earth, and space sciences, there are about 15 stories that change history. Environment, climate, energy, and resources, there are 7 stories. Biology, genetics, medical sciences, there are 7 stories, and on and on and on. That's in 1 week. And each one of these stories changes history.
Yeah, send me a link to that email via Messenger. I'd be really interested in reading about that. If
Um,
anything, if anything,
there's
I
first,
might wanna start a new branch on or a new category on the podcast.
look, I can't send you a link to it because there is no online version. Okay, it's only a direct email into my inbox.
Okay, then forward me the email. I'll shoot you my email address. Forward me that email so that
Put
I
your
can
put
add
your
him
email put
to.
your email address into the uh,
Dude,
the
it's
community.
really simple, and to any of my podcast listeners and stuff that are listening as well,
Mhm.
it's musterpointpodcast@gmail.com. I
Okay.
haven't been able to start an email for Rough and Tough yet, but for most of the listeners that I have now that listen to me on the Muster Point,
Okay, we
yeah, it's
got
just musterpointpodcast@gmail.com.
musterpointpodcast@gmail.com.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Because I'm an action kind of kind of guy. You have it now. It has been emailed to you already. Yeah.
Nice. I will definitely check that out. And
And
yeah,
I've been
something
look,
like that.
I've been getting this mail like every week for like maybe 5, 6 years, right? It's probably the only mail that I've subscribed to weekly for that length of time. And it's the only one that continues to blow my mind every single week when I open it up. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, well, shit. I just might need to start a new podcast just to cover that shit
I mean,
because that sounds interesting as hell.
one like one article on that. There's enough that, and there's like 50 to 100 articles that this person collates every week. Yeah. Um, So it's based on the work of Graham Hancock and John Anthony West. I think Anthony West is dead now. I think,
I might need to set up an interview with this guy.
uh, and yeah, I mean,
Makes me wonder if he would be open to appearing on the podcast.
I'm pretty sure that that he would do something like that. But everybody's different. So um, it's just like the email is just like digging through history every week to find things that are unusual, strange, and we already know that there's the out of place artifacts. Well, this is kind of like the out of place information. This is like, well, we learned this, and um, look, here's a spanner in the works. The earliest references and photographs of samurai show them all to be European. Did you know that? There's a
No, I did not.
there's a spanner in the works. The samurai were European. Okay, they were not Japanese. The Japanese just copied what the samurai did. Dun dun dun. So there's a whole area of lost history right there. Yeah. Um. Here's another weird one. Here's one that always confused me. Ships, right? Boats. Um. If you look at the largest ships that were built in the 20th century, they are nothing compared to the ships that were built by China about 400 to 500 years ago in order to explore the world. Yeah. China had floating cities. They had
You're shitting me.
No, I'm not shitting you, man. I'm here to blow your mind, not shit on you, right? China had floating cities, and there are some images, some drawing images, and written references to China's floating cities that where they sent whole like populations of armies down into India and around India. Yeah. And so, there's I saw a pictorial kind of reference of size between like the size of Christopher Columbus's ship and the size of the Chinese floating cities, and like you could fit like 500 of Christopher Columbus's ships inside one of those Chinese ships. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, yeah, they were huge. Here's another one for you. This came from this email, right? The weekly science report. This came from this about a year ago, right? I was reading it, and it was like stories that blow your mind, right? So, um, the Japanese submarines that were sunk by the Americans at the end of the Second World War. Um, and it's like, why did they sink the submarines? Well, it was information, it was technology. They didn't want to get into other people's hands. Okay, what information? What technology? The Japanese submarines had planes on them. The Japanese submarines were carrying planes. Yeah, their technology was advanced enough for them to build submarines, plan to put planes into them, so that submarine could appear and they could launch a plane attack.
You're fucking kidding me.
I'm not fucking. There's you can find the diagrams online, and you can see there's interviews with the soldiers who were, like the groups of soldiers who found the submarines first, and like they went down into submarines and like fucking planes, oh my god, and then you get the diagrams of the submarines that show you how they put the planes on the submarines, like in the submarines. Yeah, the Japanese already had that. Yeah. Which was
Fuck.
Yeah, I know. Which was, and that's why the Americans sunk the submarines, because they found them and they're like, fuck, this is more than this is all this technology is better than what we've got, and they took all the plans and designs and sunk the submarines so that nobody would know quite how advanced they were. So, that was, and you can, I think, if you Google like these, I don't know. Japanese submarines had planes on them, designed Second World War, something like that. And you have to get the right search terms. You'll pull up images of the designs of the submarines, because obviously they don't have any pictures except them sinking. They've got pictures of them sinking the submarines, but not actually what's inside it. But they've got the diagrams. So
fuck.
Yeah, I mean it's this stuff is wild, right? Stuff is wild and crazy, and yet my life is pretty plain and simple, in comparison to those amazing elements of history that exist. It's quite an incredible world that we live in. It's nice to kind of put all the pieces of the puzzle together, though. It's nice to kind of look at the things and say, well, that's not practical, or that's not logical, or that didn't happen like that, or there's much more going on in certain areas than we think there is, and then maybe there's less. Maybe we're all just kind of, our attention is distracted and we're focused on things that are maybe not so important sometimes. So it's interesting. I mean, my if you check out my YouTube channel, I have a series called Matrix Conversations on there, where I go sort of into discussing what is theoretically possible beyond the physical. But like I said, I haven't had any experiences that I can't explain. Right? There's like no spirits, no ghosts, no movements, no paranormal, nothing odd, no Loch Ness monsters. It's
Hey, I've always wanted to see if I could catch that son of a bitch. As far as like catch a side of it.
I think
Loch Ness monster.
I just think I think that's a Scottish joke on the world. I think it's like I think it's it's a reference to the Scottish appendage, shall we say? Right. Oh, would you look at the size of that? My
Oh,
God! My
it's,
God!
it's a fucking it's a Loch Ness monster.
Oh my God! You'll never fit that on the podcast. Oh!